So it's pretty cool. We're about to celebrate as a country our 250th anniversary. I think that's pretty cool, pretty amazing. Did you know that at this point, I was doing a little research on this week, 1/4 of Americans are baptized Catholic. Add to that, roughly 35% of American politicians identify as Catholic. Interesting. I find that to some extent kind of ironic, given, as you may know, for many years in this country, Catholics were not only not permitted to vote, we were certainly not permitted to hold public office. So it's funny how things change, yeah? One of my favorite Catholic politicians that I may have spoken with some of you about, so if I have, please forgive me, but his name was Charles Carroll. And Charles Carroll was the only Catholic who signed the Declaration of Independence. He died when he was 95. He outlived 4 U.S. presidents. And it's interesting, at the time of the signing of Declaration of Independence in 1776, the name Charles Carroll was actually kind of a common name, right? So when they were signing the Declaration in Independence Hall, one of the other signers was kind of giving him a hard time about it, basically saying, look, you're not putting anything on the line. You got a common name, buddy. And so with that, he stood back up. He goes back over to the Declaration and signs Charles Carroll from Carrollton, as if to say, like he put his address there, as if to say to the British, here I am, come get me, I'm ready to die for this cause. Charles Carroll. One of the things that he used to say that I think is worth all of us remembering, he said this: we are not American Catholics, we are Catholic Americans. We're not American Catholics, we're actually Catholic Americans. And his point, and this is why I'm sharing this with you, his point was that we become better Americans, more patriotic, when we live our Catholic faith. Imagine that. And I think he's on to something. What are some of the things that we can learn from these founding fathers and founding mothers? By the way, side note, who can tell me one of the founding mothers of this country? The founding fathers get a lot of attention. Who's a founding mother? That's Betsy Ross. Thank you so much. Awesome, Janie. Thank you. Right? She saved all you guys. Thank you. How about Abigail Adams? There's a tough woman, boy. Put up with her husband. Not an easy task. So we have Washington, Hamilton, Adams, Monroe, Madison, Mason, Franklin, Jefferson, all these guys. They had different types of understanding of faith. Some were what they called deists. Others were Presbyterian. Then we got this old Catholic named Charles. One of the things that they talk a lot about, as you know, is our personal duty to what they call the common good. Right? I mean, you know the words in the Declaration. Say it with me if you don't mind. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life. I'm 52, and I remember, those of you that are my age and older, you remember the days when we had to fight to defend the sanctity of life. And I can tell you, as one who spends a lot of time with young people, to these kids now, they're like, duh. I mean, you don't have to like twist their arm to be pro-life. They're like, yeah, of course I'm pro-life. Right? It's funny how things change. For them, they understood life in terms of a gift that inalienable. What does that mean? It means it can't be removed. It's a tattoo on the soul. Nobody can, if the state gives the right to life, the state can take it away. And they're like, no. Life, liberty. What does liberty mean? According to the founders, it means our ability to choose our faith, to better ourselves. You may have heard me say, when it comes to faith, everyone can choose, but you can't choose not to choose. Everybody can choose, but you can't choose not to choose. In other words, the choice of being neutral or apathetic about our faith is a choice. Jesus says, you're either with me or you're against me. There's nothing in between. But for them, this was the fundamental right of a human being after the right to life, the right to choose our faith. Do you know, by the way, that liberty is mentioned 3 times in the Constitution, but 30 in the Bible? Keeping in mind that the Constitution was also signed at Independence Hall 11 years after the Declaration. Interesting. How do we understand liberty? Jesus says, for instance, in Luke chapter 4, he says, I have come to bring liberty to captives, to set these people free, captive from sin, captive from their own isolation and ego. What is the pursuit of happiness? Well, maybe we should ask what it's not, because that's something that a lot of Americans get wrong. The pursuit of happiness is not the ability to do whatever I want. It is the ability to do what I should. That's how they understood it. Because maybe you've heard me mention this, it bears repeating. One of the things that clouds many Americans' thinking is they associate wants with rights. I want blank, therefore I have a right to blank. And if you say I don't have a right to what I want, then you're intolerant. Welcome to American thought. And nobody wants to be accused of being intolerant. So like, oh yeah, that's fine. Just do whatever you want to do. But they don't think about how that impacts the whole. So one of the things the Catholic Church and the Founding Fathers totally agree on is liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Because what's going to make us happy is living in the truth. Right? This is what Jesus said. If we take him for his word, and he's God, so I'm guessing he's not lying. He said, you will find the truth, and the truth will do what? That's what he's talking about, man. You want to be happy, live in the truth. It's pretty simple. But people have proven all the time that what they think is going to make them happy actually makes them more miserable. Good luck with that, buddy. As one man told me, he reached a certain point of making bad decisions, and he said, Father, I got sick of eating out of the dumpster of bad choices, and I have now found happiness. Awesome. Awesome. Do you know at this point there's 5,300 universities in this country? 5,300 colleges and universities in this country, and they are teaching awesome good things. First University, Harvard. First Catholic University, Georgetown. They do wonderful, awesome things, but one of the things that has unfortunately been a cancer for some of them is advocating for socialism and communism. And you know, it's really interesting, because if you talk to anyone that has lived in Cuba, the former Soviet Union, and parts of China, they will say the same thing. They say, Father, these people can advocate for socialism because they never lived under socialism. Okay? Try living under it. It's a different story. In other words, they have a rosy view of something that doesn't exist. Maybe just for an exercise, we can do this. Do you know that at least theoretically, democracy and socialism argue for the equality of the people, at least theoretically. They both argue for the equality of the people. So what's the difference? Let's say that you have a sophomore in college who comes home and says, Mom, what's the difference between democracy and socialism? And you're like, Google? right? So what's the difference? They're both arguing for the equality. The person, I'll tell you the difference. You just said it. One argues for the dignity of a human being, life, liberty, and whereas one understands the human being as a cog in the engine serving the state. This is exactly why socialism always, always, always ends in a dictatorship. It's worth pointing out, by the way, at the end of Mass, when we pray the St. Michael prayer, the guy that wrote that, Pope Leo XIII, who died in 1903, right before he wrote that, he wrote 2 documents making that point on socialism. Don't take my word for it. We are free to choose, but we are not free not to choose. The choice to not choose is a choice. So I'll close with this. Did you know that 150 years ago this year, the French government gave us a gift? What was that? Yeah. Over 300 feet high. Those of you that have been there, you know that Lady Liberty, she's got one foot out as if to lead. She's got a torch in one hand and a tablet in the other. Anybody know what's on the tablet? It's a date. July 4th, 1776. 100 years later, they gave us this statue. Isn't it interesting that many non-Americans tend to understand more what Americans believe with regards to liberty than Americans understand with regards to liberty? It often takes an immigrant to show the native what they've got. The French understood, apparently, what the Founding Fathers and, by the way, the Catholic Church teach, that liberty in its essence is the understanding to choose one's faith, to live one's faith, and to live in the truth, yeah? Libertà. For each one of us, we have to remember, those of you with children and grandchildren, please remember this. We can raise our kids in the faith, and that's an awesome thing, and thank you for that. But at the end of the day, they got to decide. They have to own it, if it's going to be real. Gentlemen, when you proposed to your wife, did you say to her, "You will marry me, woman"? Right? That would have gone over well. Right? What did you say? Will you marry me? Love has to be a free will decision. By the way, when I stand right here and I'm marrying a couple right here, I say, have you come here freely and without reservation to give yourself to each other in marriage? My bishop asked me the same question when I was ordained. Have you come here freely? Nobody's squeezing your arm. Faith is the same thing. They have to own it. They have to take ownership of it. And we can tell our kids and grandkids, guys, I love you. I wish you the best. But at a certain time in your life, you got to own it.